course is now starting. Lesson 3, operation. Here we go. Are you ready? All right, let's get started. Let's get started in operation. So here's chapter 3, operation. Here's the photo I chose. Picture of me inside of a big old tire that goes onto an airplane. Chapter 3, operation. I remember hearing a statistic that something like 90% of new trucking companies fail within 1 year. And the ones that make it past 1 year, 50% of those guys are failing within 2 years. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Okay. Trucking can be pretty hard, even very hard sometimes, especially in the beginning. Just know, I'll even call myself out when I need to. But one of the main reasons people fail is because they just plain choose a horrible operation. Okay? Operation. That's the key word of what we're doing right now in this lesson. So let's dive straight in. See right there in the blue? Let's dive straight in. If we are not making at least $2,500 a week after fuel, we could be doing better. And if you are consistently making over $1,500 to about $2,000, I mean, you're not doing horrible, but you could definitely be producing more revenue. I consider a stable operation with growth potential to be $3,000 a week net after fuel. $3,000 a week, simple net after fuel. If you're making at least $3,000 a week and save your money well, buy tools and fix on your own truck from time to time, there's almost really no reason why you shouldn't be constantly progressing and building up your bank account. Okay? Just know, the amount of money you actually keep is the real scorekeeper in this game. We'll get into budgeting and how to lower your operating costs in a later chapter, but there's plenty of people who make $200,000 or more gross per year, but can't afford a set of 8 name brand tires when it's all said and done, right? We got to be responsible and wise with our what? Money. If you are not willing to sacrifice, then hey, maybe business, and this business in particular, is not for you. Right? Just a little tough love there. But seriously, we must know, right? We gotta sacrifice a little bit along the way, okay? Sacrifice now. This is a saying I like to say a lot. Or a saying, especially in the beginning. But sacrifice now and live like a king later. Sacrifice now and live like a king later. Maybe that means just a couple, like drinks and sodas and Red Bulls, and maybe instead of getting 2 or 3 a day, we just get 1 or 2 and have some water in the truck. Or instead of getting a hotel so many times, maybe you just get it a couple times, like 1 every month or something, or 2 or 3 months. Instead of idling your truck, you find a way to, if it's cool enough, maybe have a fan going, right? These are all the little sacrifices that, like, especially in the beginning, the more sacrifice that we take, we will pretty much get to the, we tend to get to the other side quicker, where we don't have to like sacrifice on those type of things anymore. Okay, so 2 terms that we need to know in business are gross and net. Okay, there's a great chance you've probably already heard of gross and net, but I just want to cover it for everybody that hasn't. So gross is just the total amount of money we make before expenses, before we spend any money. Like, say I book a load today, $3,000, that's the gross, $3,000. I don't keep all $3,000 because I'm spending money to go make that money, right? So gross, it's kind of funny, gross. The gross is like, it's kind of gross when you look at how much it was before you spend it. But anyways, But yeah, so gross is all of the money before expenses. Net is what we make after all expenses, right? Just the way I used to think about it when I first started learning about business was like kind of like a fisherman. His net. So whatever he would collect in his net, that's what he actually keeps. So you will also hear me say simple net, and this is a term I made up, and basically what it means is how much money you make after paying for fuel. So when I say, hey, I got a simple net of $2,000 on this load, that's $2,400. That means I spent $400 on fuel, and I have $2,000. I still have to kind of pay for more things, compliance, and if I'm having a truck note or a trailer, you do that, and etc. But after fuel, simple net. That's what that means. Simple net. So whenever you hear me say simple net, that's what it means. How much we make after fuel. This is a term that anybody can use. You can use it too. Another important term is profit, right? I hope we all know what profit is. I know we do. Profit is the amount of money that you make past the amount of money you spent. So if you spent $1,000 to make $2,000, you made $1,000. That's right, because you made $1,000 past the first $1,000 that you spent. Because if you spent, you got to subtract it. So example, if it took you $50 to make $100, you made a $50 profit, right? If your gross amount made was $100, but your profit is $50. Oop, I kind of read that wrong. Your gross amount made was $100, but your profit is $50. Profit and net are very similar and can pretty much be used interchangeably. So whenever you use like net or profit, pretty much very close to the same thing. So next thing we need to know, so we got what? We got gross, net, profit, right? 3 very fundamental business terminology and actualities. Another business word we need to know is overhead and overhead cost. Probably heard this before if you don't already know what it is. But our overhead is how much it costs to run our business. IFTA, insurance, vehicle payments, fuel, insurance, etc. This is all overhead. And if we want to get really technical, however much it costs us to run our household at home. If there's a mortgage, if there's car notes, if there's there's going to be insurance for vehicles, what other type of insurances that you might decide to carry, those can be worked into overhead too, if to be more technical. Overhead can be measured by the year, by the month, by the week, and even by the load. I usually measure my overhead by the month and by the year. So I know every month is costing me about $2,000 to $3,500, give or take, right now, because I got some at the moment of this recording, I got some different I always forget that expression. Logs in the fire, wood in the fire, sticks in the fire, whatever. But yeah, but without my trucking business, my overhead is really cheap. It's like $5,000 a year at home. But every now and then I'll buy some things that I'll leverage credit on, and then I'll just pay them off like with 0% interest, 18-month credit cards, 0% interest and stuff. So I got a couple of those going for some things I advanced myself on, but it's all good. So, but that's what I mean by the month and by the year. So I know how much, give or take, it costs me per month, and that's my overhead. To figure out your overhead, simply just add up all your costs for the year. $2,290, truck payments, insurance. Just do your best to add it all up, estimate it. Probably even like 15 cents per mile for maintenance. So 15 cents times 100,000 miles. That gets included. Fuel, if you just take 100,000 miles divided by whatever your fuel mileage is, 6.57, 7.5, times it by what you think the average cost of fuel is going to be for the year, and that'll be your fuel. These are all different costs. We add them all up, and that's your yearly overhead. Divide that number by 12, which is how many months there is, of course, right? And that'll give you your monthly overhead. Then you just divide your monthly overhead by 4 to get your weekly overhead. Real simple mathematics. We got the big year. We divide it by 12 since there's 12 months. So that shows us each month how much it costs. Then each month has 4 weeks. So we divide it by 4 again, so we know how much it costs each week. Once you pass your overhead cost, you what? You start to truly generate a profit. Okay? There's an old saying in it, and it's used in trucking too. Don't put your carriage before the horse, right? Because the horse has to be first in order to pull the carriage. Many people do this in trucking. For some reason, they'll go buy or lease a truck, don't even know what type of trailer or what company they're going to run the truck with. They don't know their 1 to 5 year business plan. They don't know how much money they'll be making, or they don't even know how much money they'll be making at the company that they haven't even decided on yet. Sometimes that's the case too. Got a truck, don't even know what, not having a plan for which company to take it to. Like, come on. So this is, in my opinion, a very foolish way to move, but it happens every day. Do what you can to not be this, guy. Okay, to not be this guy. If you are this guy, you did right by buying my book. It's time to rewrite these old habits ASAP. We got to figure out our numbers and our potential profits before we buy a truck, if possible. If you haven't already went past that step, and before we choose a company, because look at this too. The type of work that you'll be doing has a lot to do with what type of truck, engine, transmission, and differential gear ratios that you'll need to choose. So it's just smarter to figure out your plan first, run the numbers on paper, see how much you'll be making on the low side, and see how much you'll be making on the high side. And what I mean by this is, if you want to go to Landstar, talk to as many Landstar drivers as you can. If you know freight is going for about $2.50 a mile all the way up to unlimited, $2.50 a mile all the way to unlimited, well, then at Landstar you would just do the mathematics. So on the low side, let's just say $1.80, but remember Landstar takes a cut, so you have to work in the percentage, factor in the percentage that they take out, which at Landstar, what do you get, 65%? Something like that. So yeah, you would estimate at driving probably like 70,000 miles a year, since if you're doing a full 100, there's going to be a portion of those that are going to be empty miles. So this is what, on the low side, it'd be probably 70,000 miles times $1.50. Then on the high side, it'd be like 70,000 miles times, like, let's just say $2.75 a mile or something like that. That's after their percentage, which still leaves you room to do better than that. But that way you can have two numbers in your head. Okay, so I'm going to be making somewhere in between this spread, between this number and this number, is what I need to be making, and what I'm going to be making this year, right? Let me double check, make sure I'm still recording. All right, cool. This is all done on paper. This is all done mathematics, and it's different to each person. Okay, it's different to you, to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. It just depends on what company you're looking to go to and what their deal is. Then you have to crunch those numbers. High side, how much would you make at, on the higher side of things? How much would you make on the lower side of things? Then do that for each place that you look to go for until you see what's your best opportunity. Then, of course, like I just mentioned a moment ago, factor in 15 to 20 cents a mile for maintenance until you work your kinks out of your truck. More on this a little bit later. But even then, 10 to 20 cents a mile for maintenance is pretty average. So, here we go. Let me get on myself real quick here, because I was one of those guys when I first started. I got into a lease deal at 22 years old. I didn't go into it completely blind. I did have a mentor who was breaking down cost and revenue with me so I could better run the math on it. But as far as having a great plan or really knowing the business, yeah, I was pretty much completely blind. After about 6 months, the light bulb went off in my head, a light bulb in my head came on, and I asked myself, why am I paying $900 a week for a truck that I cannot keep? This was over at Prime. I was leasing a truck at Prime when I was 22. So this is the positive self-talk and audit keeping conversation that we have to have with ourselves. We have to ask ourselves, can we be doing better? Can I be doing better? Should I make my next step? Is there more opportunity for me? Let me ask more guys. Let me ask more drivers. Let me look around. Let me see if there's a better operation I can get into. This is positive. We're doing an audit. We're just reviewing what's going on to see if we can improve it. So $900 every week is $3,600 a month. It's pretty ridiculous, right? That's how much I was paying, $900 a week to lease my truck, silver Peterbilt at Prime that I had. So I say right here, what? I could be buying a brand new truck for $3,600 a month if I wanted. Something about this lease deal is not adding up. I made decent money there at Prime as a lease operator in the beginning, but more money than I had ever made pretty much previously. About $1,200 to $2,000 a week tops. But I actually don't remember making much more than $1,800 in 1 week. And that wasn't very common at all. Actually, look at that, I said actuality, but actually it was very rare. The thing with this lease deal was I can make decent money, but I can never really afford to come home or take time off. Same thing. This was frustrating to me, and I knew I could do better. If I stayed home for 5 days, now I would come out about $1,100, right? $1,100 in the hole. So that next week my settlement would be about, that week my settlement would be negative $1,100, right? I got to come back out and pay my bills. So if on a good week, or on the following week of coming out, say if I made $1,500, that means my next settlement covered my negative balance of last week, and probably still didn't cover my fixed expenses for this next week, still leaving me $500 in the negative. So those 5 days at home cost me another week of catching up with no new money. It was ridiculous, okay? It's 2021, and nobody should be hustling like this anymore. At the time of this recording, it's 2021. We're smack in the middle of it, July. Actually, July 26th right now, 2001, at the time of this recording, okay? Now, of course, there are some exceptions, and there are some lease deals that make sense, but in the most part, check out the red letters, they're in red for a reason. But for the most part, when it comes to lease deals, you are just taking all the bills and liability away from the big carrier and putting them on yourself for pretty much worthless returns. Okay? So I say here, no thank you! Exclamation point. My opinion is that you or this person here, right, would be better off just being a company driver and saving your money. The sad part is, in my situation at Prime back in the day, I would never be able to keep my first truck, even after I paid it off. I would have to return the truck, then they would go sell it at Pedigree. Nothing against Robert Lowe and Prime, of course, and then I would have to wait until truck number 2, then put down roughly $12,000 it was at the time, then go through the whole process again and pay that one off. That's ridiculous. It would take me like 4 or 5, 6, I don't know, many years. So on this first truck too, remember, I was still responsible for maintenance on a truck that I couldn't even own. But I was just so excited to be running my own business that I guess I didn't even care. Or it didn't become obvious to me yet that I was in what? A bad deal. A negative deal. One that didn't benefit me very much. So I got back into my lab did a bunch of number crunching and decided on my next move. So when I'm doing number crunching, sometimes it's in my head, but eventually I'll get to paper. So I'll get into like a composition notebook or paper and start writing it down and really start projecting how much money am I going to make. So by leaving Prime, I would cut my overhead in half. Instead of paying $3,600 a month on a lease note, I would be paying $1,650 towards a truck that I would actually own. Plus, I wanted more control of my freight. I wanted to haul lighter loads, and I already knew at that time I wanted to go to where? Landstar. Only thing was I had to be 23 years old to apply at Landstar. But this gave me time to save more money and to work out a deal for financing. I was approved for my truck at 22 years old, a couple of weeks before I put my app in with Landstar. Just so you know, Landstar's hiring process usually takes about a month. At 23, I got my own truck from Lone Mountain and took it to Landstar. The total cost was $65,000 financed with $6,200 down. Or $7,200 in parentheses. I forget. One or the other. But it was my very own 2009 Peterbilt 387. It was an X-Prime truck. It had a pretty blue paint job. Had a tri-pack APU on it since day one. This was a cool truck. But it sure gave me many life lessons on self-reliance. The point I'm making is, before I went to Landstar, I went to their online webinars for using their load board. I knew how much their fuel discounts were. I knew how to calculate their percentages. I spoke to many owner-operators at Landstar. Okay? When I first started at U.S. Express, when I was 21, I even knew I wanted to be at Landstar one day. Once I learned that they picked their own loads and had that type of control on their destiny, I just knew that's where I was supposed to be too. I didn't go to Landstar just because of sensation or emotion. I crunched the numbers, I did the math, and it made the most sense. Alright? Page 14, let's get in. Here in the green we say what? This chapter is called Operation because after mentality, this is one of the next most important parts that has to be in place. In the following chapter, I will give you detailed information on exactly how I run my operation. But as for this moment, we're going to focus on discussing different operations. Maybe even spark which one might work great for you. So let's pay attention. Let's take notes. Do whatever we got to do. We're going through this thing, okay? You have to know your goals. You have to know your budget. You have to know what makes you and your family happy. Okay? $4,000 a week might not mean nothing to a man that makes $2,000 a week, but he is home every other night and the weekends off, and vice versa. Right? If you have a guy that's making $4,000 a week after fuel, you probably maybe he's okay with staying away from home because the family gets along like that, or maybe this person, this driver is single. Probably would be very difficult to convince them that make $2,000 a week and stay home, and vice versa, right? So this guy's making $2,000 a week, that might be more than enough. His truck's probably paid off for. He's home. He gets to watch his kids grow up. She gets to watch her kids grow up, etc. I probably couldn't convince this person there was a better operation for him because he found one that makes him enough money, makes him happy, and it makes him available to his family or to her family, right? So, as you'll see, the guys that run these type of operations usually have the old paid-off pre-emission trucks. They got their own tools. They do a lot of their own maintenance, right? They do their own brake jobs, grease their own truck, do their own oil changes, and etc. They offset this lower income by being very self-sufficient and not paying somebody or outsourcing to do every little job. If you don't work on your truck at all, then you pretty much got to be making the big bucks, at least $3,000 a week or more. But even then, why pay somebody $50 to put in your air filter? Pay for mud flaps, windshield wipers, sensors, lights, solenoids, switches, fuses, relays, those are all very simple. These are things I think every owner-operator should have the tools and the smarts to do eventually. Maybe not in the very beginning, but, job by job, it gets easier and you figure out how to do it, right? YouTube University. This is a great way to build confidence for bigger jobs too, and to keep that profit that you make in your pocket. I can't tell you how many times I bought the tool to do something, and later I end up using that same tool again and again. Which means this tool ends up paying for itself over and over again, right? The more tools you collect, the more you find yourself being able to fix most of the repairs you need to make along the way out on the field. I'll have a great bonus book for you called My Tool Lists. Yeah, My Tool List. My Tool List is also in the PDF files that come with this course. So My Tool List is a cool book. It just talks about the importance of carrying tools, and I show pictures of pretty much every tool that I have out here on the road with me at the time of writing this book in this course. So I show you the tools I carry with the pictures and how I organize them and etc. Because organization, very key. Okay, so you should have received my tool list for free with this, getting into this course. So, but if not, just let me know and email me andrewsmethod2@gmail.com, and I'll make sure you get it. But it's pretty impossible not to get it. Everybody has their own style, okay? Their own method and their own operation. It's up to you to decide on which will be the best for you. It may take trial and error, or with enough research and from you reading my book and being in this course, you may actually get it right the first time. And in parentheses, I say what? This will be a blessing. Most of us, we have to find all this stuff out the hard way. So I meet guys all the time out here who are content with making $1,500 to $2,500 a week. And even with high equipment cost and very little knowledge on the business and or maintenance and fixing on their own trucks. Me? No. I can never hustle like this. But hey, this is their choice. Some people would rather pay more for a newer truck, thinking that this makes them clear from maintenance. Okay? So maybe even this is something that you might be thinking right now, and I'm not saying that it's wrong to get a newer truck, but let's continue. We'll see, okay? But I'll tell you what, new trucks need repairs too. And usually, especially past a certain year, and we'll see this when we get into which truck should I choose, but pretty much after 2004, we get into the first round of emissions. Then after 2007, which is 2008, then we get into the next round of emissions. 2012 we get in the next round of emissions. So by 2012, there's so much of an emission systems: DPF, DOC, EGR, DEF. And usually they need more repairs because of the emission system and the 30 sensors that run it. Okay. Now, in parentheses, I say, it 30 sensors, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but seriously, it's ridiculous. I'm getting a little sidetracked because operation does include what type of truck setup you choose, but I'll go into way more detail on the equipment in the following chapter, okay? Next, I'll cover, for who doesn't know, the different levels and operation types. So if you're already knowing a lot of this, just probably skip, move forward some, or just kind of disregard it or listen lightly. But this is also for everybody, because I remember back when I first got into this, I didn't even really understand the different designations, okay? So right here, we'll start with number one, lease operator. All right. This is when you can lease a truck straight from a carrier, from a trucking company, and then you lease that truck to that same carrier's DOT number. So when I was at Prime, and I leased a truck from Prime, and I was paying them through my settlement, and whose DOT number did I have on the side? Prime. So I'm a lease operator at that point. I'm leasing their truck to their company. Many owner-operators do not consider this being an owner-operator. So just know that. Going forward, doesn't really matter, but just know that a lot of, like, especially the old school guys, the owner-operators out here, the guys that have been doing it for a while, just because, say, if you might lease a truck from a company, they still don't consider you an owner-operator. Not really. Not yet. Not yet. So actually, to be in this position and to tell people that you're an owner-operator is kind of disrespectful. Because look at it. A lease operator in this capacity does not have many of the responsibilities, freedoms, or achievements of an owner-operator. If you don't book your own freight, if you don't work on your own truck, you don't actually own the truck, and you will never own the truck because it's a standard lease, you don't handle compliance like IRP, IFTA, UCR, insurance, and more. Just so you know, many guys do take disrespect when this new young lease operator jumps out telling everyone he or she is what? I'm an owner-operator. Well, it's all good, but not quite, my friend. Not yet. You are a businessman, a businesswoman. You are leasing, but not quite like an owner-operator yet. This phase is more like being a company driver with more financial responsibility, with a slightly increased pay. And a lot of times this pay is actually lower than a company driver pay once you factor in home time, maintenance, and etc. And in parentheses I say, sorry, just the truth. Okay, just the truth over here. So now we get into number 2. So that's a lease purchase driver. I mean, what did I say? A lease operator. So then we got lease purchase. So this person's actually purchasing through a lease. This is pretty much the same type of operation as above, but you lease purchase instead of just leasing. You will still lease your truck from the same carrier that you will be leased to, but in this operation, also most carriers will not let you take their truck to another company until you have paid it off completely. So the main difference between lease operator and lease purchase is that in a lease purchase, you actually get to own your truck when you finish paying for it, depending on your deal. So if you are a lease purchase and somebody calls you a lease driver, a lease operator, at least you can say, hey, I'm a lease purchase driver. I'm purchasing this truck. It's a little more dignifying because you are actually buying your truck, right? 3, we got leased-on 2. So now we've got lease operator, lease purchase, leased-on 2. Now we got 3 leases already. So leased-on 2 is what? You buy your own truck from a bank, you get a bank loan or etc. from a dealership, something along these lines, or you just pay cash for a truck and you lease it to a company, to their DOT number. This is usually referred to as being an owner-operator, leased to a company, right? So at this point, you are owner-operator, leased to a company. This is what I was doing when I bought my own truck, brought my own truck to Landstar. I was what? I was leased to Landstar. I was not leasing from Landstar. I was leased to and from. It can sound a little confusing because it's the same word, leased. The same word leased is being used in a different way. The key word is leased to and leasing from. Leasing from is a lease purchase or a lease operator type operation. Leasing to is on the owner operator side of things. Leasing to is I just said it is on the owner operator side of things, right? there are many real owner operators that choose to lease to a company like Landstar or Mercer, and that's perfectly fine. It's all about what works for you and what makes you happy, okay? So that's lease to. So we got lease purchase. Lease operator, lease purchase, and you see we're working our way up. Lease operator, lease purchase, leased on to, then we got boom, having your own authority. And that's one beautiful thing we get to do in this course. From chapter 15 on, it's all about having your own authority. So you'll have all this information here if you decide to go fully independent, which is, I'm telling you now, not as difficult as it seems. So having your own authority is you have your own truck and you lease it to your company. Or however you set it up, it's up to you. You can lease it to your own company or hire yourself as a company driver, etc. This is called having your own authority. In order to do this, you must have your own DOT number, your own motor carrier number, IRP, that's your apportion plate, and IFTA. You are completely in charge of all of your safety, state and federal compliance, right? Some say this is being a true owner operator, and I agree. But there's nothing wrong with being leased to a company if that's what works best for you. Hold on, I need to pause this real quick. I'll be right back.